This video describes how to use the grid in the BCG Event Manager, and in particular how to create and arrange meetings on the grid. It assumes that you already understand how to view and interpret what you see on the grid, which is covered in a prior video. So let's get started. First, if you'd like to create a new meeting on the grid, go to the grid location that you're interested in and double-click. You'll see a new dialog that says Allocate Time. On it you can create a meeting, a meal, blackout times, or a meeting hold. For this example, I'll simply create a meeting. If another meeting already exists that is similar to the one that you want to create, you can use this Make It a Copy Of, and you can choose the other meeting. In this case, I'll just make a brand new meeting and click Create. Now the meeting dialog is so complicated that it deserves a video of its own. So you can check that video out if you want to understand all the details here. The main thing to know for purposes here is that it's important to give every meeting a unique name. So this one will be about tying my shoe. I think I'm misspelling tying, but I don't care. Now you can see the new meeting has been created. It's given the identity, the unique identity, 1192, and it lasted for 1 hour. You can see that the meeting is overlapping some required setup time for the next meeting, 1184. So I'm going to shorten it by entering the meeting and changing the end time to 9:45 and saving. I just fixed that meeting. Now 1192 is a viable working meeting. You'll note that 1192 doesn't seem to require any lead time. That's because in the Linden room, the default room setup is U-shaped tables and chairs. And this meeting also uses U-shaped tables and chairs. Therefore, no lead time is required. If I change that, for example, to banquet rounds, and I save it, you will see that it warns me, hey, you're switching to banquet rounds, and I should give it lead time. This is yellow, indicating that I have not yet given it lead time, but I can do so by clicking and saying add lead time. That will fix it. Or I can change the meeting setup so that no lead time is required by clicking change meeting setup, which will set it to U-shaped tables and chairs, or whatever setup was being used by any prior meeting. I'm going to add lead time in this case for the banquet rounds. The other interesting thing to note is that you can create meetings that span multiple rooms. Let's say, for example, that I need a half-hour meeting at 3:30. And this is going to be a short but large meeting. And I want it to span both the Maple room and the Linden room. I can come down to this room area and add the Linden room and create it. This is now considered to be a multi-room meeting, and you can see that the same identity, 1193, is shown for both. Also, there's a black line surrounding the entire meeting group. That has impacts for when you start to rearrange meetings, and I'll show that in just a moment. So let's get to that topic. How can I move and arrange meetings? Let's say that the meeting I created before, 1192, needed to be a full hour long. And so it was important for me to give it the space it needed. I'm going to move it as follows. I simply click and drag it, And you can see that there's a yellow highlight that follows the meeting, showing me exactly what times and which room the meeting is in. This becomes more useful when you have 100 rooms and many, many times during the day. So this meeting is going to be moved forward to 8:30, and when I release, it will check, do I want to move it from 9 to 8:30? I'm going to say yes. And the second thing that you can do to arrange a meeting is to change its duration. So I'm going to grab the arrow at the end of the meeting, and I can pull it forward to make the meeting longer. I can pull it back to make it shorter. In this case, I want to have an hour-long meeting from 8:30 all the way through to 9:30. So I'll release, and you can see that the change was made. Now the meeting is a full hour long. So let's see what that looks like when you have a multi-room meeting. Going back to 1193, if I drag this, again the yellow appears, and let's say I want it to be at 3 o'clock. When I release, it will ask if I want to move it, and it will move both meetings to that time. Now, to be clear, you might have noticed that it seemed to be a half-hour meeting at first, and now it appears to be an hour-long meeting. The truth is that it was always an hour-long meeting. And the fact that the meeting extended beyond the end of the grid, that is, this grid only shows until 4 o'clock each day, you simply were not seeing the second half hour of that meeting. So now 1193, which was always an hour long, has been moved to an earlier time. And likewise, if I choose to drag it to make it only, for example, 15 minutes, I can do so, and when I release, both of the rooms that are affected will show the meeting change. That's a little bit about how to arrange meetings. You can move hold times, you can move blackouts and meals and so forth, and they all behave roughly the same way. Now, I have two problems on here that are visible to me, and I can make fixes for them. One is, this meeting, 1183, says that its room setup is too small for the 12 participants that I have asked for this meeting to have. And you can see, when you enter the meeting, that the capacity for this particular room setup, U-shaped tables and chairs, is only 10. There it is, the capacity of 10. But I've asked for 12 participants. I can either move the meeting somewhere else, or I can decrease the number of participants in order to fix this. I'm going to decrease the number of participants. Also, you can see that there are a number of yellow markings indicating that I haven't allocated lead time, and as I did before, I will simply click on these and add the lead time necessary. Or, if I think that that isn't the proper setup, I will change it to any other setup or the default that will be driven from whatever it was set up as at that moment. In this case, you can see 1192 is using banquet rounds. 1184 is trying to use HS, which is hollow square. But if I think that banquet rounds are appropriate and I don't need to have lead time for it, I could simply change the meeting setup. There, now it's banquet rounds. But you'll notice, when I did that, the meeting turned red. I can hover it to find out why. It turns out that the room setup, banquet rounds, RND, is too small for the 8 participants I want in that meeting. That must be why it was set to hollow square. So, I can enter the meeting. We're going to set it back to hollow square. My participants are still 8, but now the capacity of that room is 14 in the hollow square configuration. That works for me. And I remember that in order to switch from the banquet rounds, which is the configuration it will be in from the prior meeting, I'm going to need 15 minutes of lead time. I save, and sure enough, I have a nice blue that is correct HS for my lead time to switch to hollow square.